Today, we're hitting rewind to uncover the absolutely incredible story of cinema. So you gotta wonder, right? How did a simple, flickering moving picture become, well, the world's most powerful art form? In the next few minutes, we're gonna journey through more than a century of innovation that did just that, transforming those flickering images into the cinema that, we all know and love. All right, so here's our game plan. We'll start with that initial spark, then move to Europe's artistic revolutions. Check out the Hollywood Dream Factory, meet the rebels and the new waves, and finally, look at cinema's lasting legacy. Let's start at the beginning. You have to understand, cinema didn't start with stories. Not at all. It started with the pure, simple shock of just seeing something move. Its only job was to make people gasp. And look at how fast this all happened. It's wild. In 1891, you've got Thomas Edison's Kinetoscope, which is basically a private people experience. But then, boom, just 4 years later, the Lumière brothers are projecting a film to a paying audience in Paris. It's a shared spectacle. And by 1905, you've got dedicated movie theaters, these Nickelodeons, popping up all over the US. In less than 15 years, it goes from a solo novelty to a massive public event. And what's so fascinating is that right from the get-go, cinema basically had this split personality. On one hand, you had guys like the Lumière brothers, who were all about capturing reality, life caught in the act. But on the other hand, you had Georges Méliès. He was a stage magician, and for him, the camera was a magic wand, used to create these incredible fantasy worlds. So you've got these two paths right away, capturing reality or inventing it. And honestly, that's a tension that still drives movies today.
For that first decade, this was the whole point. It was what film historians call the cinema of attractions. Think of it like a circus act. The goal wasn't to tell you a story. The goal was to shock you, surprise you, just delight you with this visual spectacle. It was all about showing you something incredible, not telling you a story. But that was all about to change.
So, here's the crucial turning point. This American director, D.W. Griffith, he starts experimenting. He starts thinking, okay, this is cool, but what if we could do more? He began to see the camera not just as a recording device, but as a storytelling tool. He was the one who really started asking, what if we could guide how the audience feels? And this is how he did it. He basically invented the rule book. He's the guy who came up with the close-up, right? Pushing the camera in to really show you what a character is feeling. He perfected cross-cutting, cutting back and forth between two things happening at once to build insane tension. And of course, the last-minute rescue. Suddenly, he wasn't just showing you events. He was controlling time and emotion. He was creating a narrative. And that, right there, is the birth of the feature film as we know it. Okay, so while Hollywood is busy building this massive industry, filmmakers in Europe are taking things in a totally different direction. They're using this new medium as a way to create some serious art. Take a look at what was happening in post-World War I Germany. It was called German Expressionism. And in films like The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, they use these jagged, totally unreal sets and dramatic, stark shadows. Why? To reflect the twisted, broken psychology of the characters. The way the movie looked wasn't just decoration. It was a window right into their tormented minds. And then, over in the new Soviet Union, you have filmmakers who saw film as a powerful tool, almost like a weapon for social change. Directors like Sergei Eisenstein weren't interested in telling a smooth story. No, they used rapid, powerful editing to basically smash ideas and emotions into the audience. They wanted to provoke you. Eisenstein put it this way: the film work is a tractor that plows the spectator's psyche in a particular class direction. He literally called his technique the cinema fist. He wanted to jolt the viewer, to punch them into a new way of thinking. It wasn't about being subtle, it was about impact. All right, let's head back to the US because at the same time, a powerful new dream factory was taking shape, one that was about to dominate global cinema for decades. So how did they get so powerful? Well, it was all about something called vertical integration. It sounds complicated, but it's pretty simple. Step 1, the studios made the movies themselves. Step 2, they also distributed the movies. And Step 3, they literally owned the theaters where the movies were shown. It was a completely closed loop. This gave a handful of studios immense, almost absolute power over the entire industry. And each studio developed its own personality, its own brand. MGM was all about lavish musicals with stars like Judy Garland. Warner Brothers, they did the gritty gangster films with guys like Humphrey Bogart. And Universal, well, Universal practically invented the horror genre with icons like Boris Karloff and Bela Lugosi. They were creating these incredible brands, churning out specific types of movies with their own famous stars. And then 1927 happens. The Jazz Singer is released. It's the first major feature film to have synchronized dialogue. And just like that, everything changes. The arrival of sound, the talkies, was a total game changer. It completed Hollywood's quest for total realism and pretty much solidified its position as the ultimate dream factory. But you know how it goes. Whenever a system gets too powerful, too rigid, rebels start to pop up. And that's exactly what happened next. A new generation of filmmakers began to push back against the Hollywood machine. So, what happens when the artists start challenging the rules? Well, that question is what defined the next great era of cinema, an era where the director, not the studio, was about to become the real star. And you can really see this in two key figures. First, you have the ultimate rebel outsider, Orson Welles. He comes to Hollywood with complete creative control and makes Citizen Kane, a film that just shattered every convention. Then you have the innovator from within, Alfred Hitchcock. He worked inside the studio system, but he used it to make these deeply personal, complex films, using his mastery of suspense to explore some really deep moral ideas. And this idea of the director as the true auteur, the author of the film, really exploded in the late 1950s with the French New Wave. You had these film critics who became directors themselves. They grabbed new, lightweight cameras, shot on location, ditched the polished scripts, and embraced improvisation. They popularized things like the jump cut, and their films just felt so fresh, so personal, so alive. They proved you didn't need a massive Hollywood studio. You just needed a camera and an idea. So when you put all these revolutions together, from the very beginning all the way through these new waves, what do you get? Well, you get a powerful vocabulary, a set of ideas that continue to shape every single movie we watch today. Every time you watch a movie, you're seeing the legacy of these pioneers. All those terms, they're not just jargon. Montage, deep focus, auteur, jump cut, these are the building blocks. You're seeing the echoes of their work in action every time you go to the theater. So here's the thing. For over 100 years, cinema has had to reinvent itself over and over again just to survive. So, in our age, with streaming, with AI, with social media, what do you think its next revolution is going to look like?